Like, share, subscribe. If you don't like, share, and subscribe, your whole life is over. So, like, share, subscribe.
Documentary really did work for the government at one point in time.
That's right.
Welcome to another episode of Red and Black, where your conservatism is not just the color that you're used to. I'm Lenny McAllister. I'm here to let you know that the traditional Christmas song has been changed for this year, and it's going to go, you better not pout, you better not cry, you better not, etc., etc. I'm telling you why, because if you do that and you run for Congress, Santa Claus is coming to town, which is just ridiculous because there's really a Santa Claus that's running for Congress that came to town for Sarah Palin, and I really believe that Chris Metzler's behind it. So what say you, sir, about this?
Yeah, well, you know, the issue is it's Alaska, there's snow, there's Christmas, so Santa Claus would be appropriate in those periods of time. And the fact that you have a Santa Claus candidate, actually, I think is good news for Sarah. She needs something.
So, Jeff, apparently I think he's a democratic socialist, which actually makes sense because there's nobody that's going to be a free market person that's going to do all that bleeping work for free. So, are we really surprised that Santa Claus is on the ballot the way he's on the ballot, that he seems to be leaning more towards a communistic socialist type of agenda, and what might that say for the good people of Alaska?
I would say if you want to push back on the socialist agenda, you need to like, share, and subscribe to this channel. Because if you're concerned about socialism, we are the last bulwark against America becoming a socialist nation. But that being said, I'm all for it. I mean, I think Santa Claus should run, but I mean, this whole thing about him being a socialist is not true. When it comes to delivering those presents, notice how he does it himself. He has elves working for him. He isn't trying to get legislation passed demanding that the government sneak into everybody's home to deliver presents in the middle of the night. No, this man did this himself. So I don't know how he's getting paid. I don't know how he's making his money, but he is definitely not a socialist. So this other Santa Claus must be some kind of imposter, pretending to be the real Santa. And honestly, I think that is the real scandal here.
Priscilla, Ron, one, Jeff said that Santa Claus did it all himself, and then previous to that said that Santa Claus didn't do it all himself. He had elves doing it. So which one is it? Is he enslaving a workforce, and we won't even go into that?
I'm sure he pays those elves well.
I'm sure he does.
Listen.
Well, first of all, no. They're elves, which means that they're probably, look, they're the size of children, which means they're not getting a whole lot of food because they're not growing to normal adult height.
You know, I'm sensing a lot of anti-elf bigotry from you right now, Lenny.
Yeah.
I think that's cool.
I'm actually.
You need to check your privilege.
Sure, people got no reason
for the elves. Actually.
Listen.
Well, Priscilla, are they unionized? Because they all wear the same darn clothes. They all look the same exact way. They all seem to just kind of fall in line. They don't speak.
Yeah, just like all black people look alike too, Lenny. All elves look alike. You know?
They don't.
See, I'm very disappointed in you.
No, they are voluntarily exchanging their labor for whatever they get. So, you know, free commerce. And Santa Claus is all about meritocracy. If you don't earn it, you don't get gifts. So you have to behave. Otherwise, you will get a bag of coal. So I think this is a perfect time for Santa Claus to run and show the American people how it works.
Yeah, I have a feeling that this guy that's running in Alaska is probably more of the he sees you when you're sleeping type of Santa Claus. Now, you may be able to argue socialism with that. That's a little creepy. That's a little bit more status. So yeah, maybe I'm wrong about this guy.
That's not Saint Nick. That's more like Peeping Tom. And that will get you going to jail. Just saying.
I don't know. Hey,
I digress.
Seriously, I don't know how much chance he has. But I did live in Alaska. I was working in Alaska when Sarah Palin was running for governor. And yes, you can see Russia from Alaska. It is true. You can see it.
So you've been to her house?
I haven't been invited, but I hope after she sees this episode, maybe she'll invite me to Alaska and I can go fishing and hunting and get some moose and, stock up.
And be all hoopy changey for you, right?
Yeah.
Speaking of hope and change or lack of hope and things aren't changing as fast as maybe we want them to, let's talk about the elephant in the room, not Sarah Palin, the Republican congressional candidate, yada, 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 but what transpired over the last several days with the January 6th hearing that was put into prime time that was supposed to be this big deal. And in some regards it was, in some regards I don't know. And it kind of leads me to the first question I'm going to ask Dr. M, which is this. Is this really just a matter of there's a really good story that needs to be told that the people on this committee, and primarily Democrats, do a very horrible job of telling? Because it seems as though that there's a lot of there, but people are bored to death with the there that they're telling.
Well, I think you miss who the intended audience is here for these hearings. The intended audience is Merrick Garland and the Justice Department. That's who these hearings are for. Essentially what they're saying in a very well-produced, as I predicted, Hollywood piece is, look, Merrick, there is enough here for you to join with the district attorney, Fani Willis, in Atlanta and charge Trump criminally. The target is not the American people. They understand very clearly that the American people could care less about it. The target is Merrick Garland. And they're saying to Merrick, here is the evidence. Take the evidence and prosecute Trump criminally.
But
that's
why?
The audience.
But if that's the case, why the push to put it into prime time? You don't need to put it into prime time for that. You can actually walk out a lot more and give the Attorney General savory bits of documentation that would be the bait for an Attorney General that was at one point in time was considered for the Supreme Court, versus putting it in prime time to try to catch everybody's attention.
No, but here's the thing. According to them, they have already tried to do that. And so this is a public shaming of Merrick Garland to move to prosecute him. That's the only audience. And so when I hear people talking about the ratings were terrible and all of that, they don't care. It's Merrick Garland. And it's also saying to Fani Willis, Fani, hey, you should join with justice in prosecuting Trump criminally. That's all. That's it. This is a public shaming of Merrick. The Democrats fundamentally believe that Merrick has not done enough to prosecute Trump, and this is what they're doing. That's the whole story here.
Jeff, if that's the case, round one, who does it go to? Does it go towards the prosecution? Does it go towards I won't even call it the defense, because it's more along the lines of the blah, who cares? Because it's really only two sides. There's either the prosecution and moving it along where the AG actually does something about it, or it's the more people are like, okay, and it's two sides, right? It could either be blah, we don't care because there's nothing there, or you could even say, well, of course there's something there, but I don't care anymore because gas prices are $5 a pop, because we can't find baby formula, because the Russians are starting to actually win that war in Ukraine, et cetera, et cetera.
Yeah, I mean, and when you put it that way, Lenny, I mean, I think that what you said is true. I think the point on this round goes to those who say, yeah, there's a there, but I don't care. Like people are over this thing. And, and before I heard what Dr. Metzler just had to say, I've always assumed that this whole thing has been about being like a Hail Mary politically to help them win in the midterms, or at least to minimize the damage that they're going to sustain. And I still believe that. But now I'm wondering if prosecuting Trump is actually the number one reason, while the politics is the secondary reason. Because these people are out to get Trump. Whether you agree with things that he did or not, from the moment he took office, these people have been after him because he's been disrupting their status quo, especially when it comes to the elites, when it comes to the establishment. Keisha and I were just talking about this. It's funny that this even got brought up. This is them trying to possibly get the public to shame Merrick Garland and the Biden administration into prosecuting Trump, because they're already trying to prosecute him for other stuff. So yes, I think what happened on that day was horrible. I think we have to acknowledge that. At the same time, two things can be true at once. What happened on January 6th was bad, and I honestly think that Trump didn't handle it very well on that day. And they're using this politically and to prosecute him.
That's one heck of a way. I didn't even hear your second point because I started laughing at the first one. That is such an understatement. He didn't handle it very well. Even in January.
Well, I can go more.
Go ahead,
but the thing is, the topic is the hearings. Now, if we wanted to talk about how Trump handled it, I will go deeper on that, because everybody who follows me on Twitter knows that I was all on him for that. The way he handled that was abysmal. But that's not the topic of conversation right now. These people are trying to accuse him of having essentially organized the whole thing, and I'm not willing to go there, because that's not what happened here. That is not what the evidence shows.
What was your second point? You brought up a second point. You said number one, he handled it, and
See, I forgot now. I'm getting old. No, I think it was. No, I was saying all of these things can be true. The way Trump handled it on that day was ridiculous. I think that they are still looking to prosecute him unfairly, in my estimation. I think they're trying to use this, and that's why they're putting all this Michael Bay production value into it, because they want we, the people, to pressure Merrick Garland and the DOJ to prosecute him, because they've been trying to put him in jail since he stepped foot out of office. So it wouldn't surprise me if all of these things are true at the same time. I think now I really do think that their main goal, even though they know it's far-fetched, is to try to get some kind of conviction on Trump, because they are afraid of him running in 2024. I don't care what they say; they're terrified by that idea.
Well,
and I think
let me get Priscilla in there real quick. Priscilla, do you think the goal is to prosecute him, or the goal is to make sure he doesn't run again?
This is a great point that Dr. Metzler is bringing up, that now I'm going to start thinking about this a little bit more. But yes and yes. Right now, Trump has great popularity among the base of Republicans. He's everywhere he goes, he's continuing to bring up all the dysfunction in the current administration. Yes, I believe that the Democrats are afraid he's going to run. In fact, I was looking on the news today where it said that Joe Biden is talking about running for a second term in 2024. I don't see how he would ever be successful in running for a second term. But this kabuki theater that we saw, that was one-sided, chopped up videos. Yes, compelling. They were very, very compelling. But if you're a savvy watcher, you're like, what am I not seeing? And that's what I don't appreciate as a voter and as an American when I watch the hearings, how everything was so strategically placed together. And my number one question is, where is Nancy Pelosi's testimony? Why isn't she talking? Because if she denied the National Guard to come and protect the White House and protect Congress, I'd like to know why. And so that's a question I'd like to see answered.
Dr. Metzler, go ahead. You were going to say something?
Yeah, I mean, look, I think from the standpoint of Trump, it is becoming increasingly clear, from what I am understanding, that in fact, especially with Sussman, Hillary's lawyer, not being found guilty, he is focused, that is, Trump is focused on running again. If that's the case, there is part of this strategy, and this is why I say it's about Merrick Garland as well, is to, even if they don't win, get an indictment of Trump, which then clouds the whole 2024 field. I fundamentally believe that these hearings are not for the average voter because they care about war. I think it is aimed at Trump and Fani Willis. It's aimed at prosecuting Trump, Fani Willis, and Merrick Garland, and or Lisa Monaco, the Deputy Attorney General, saying, "Yeah, maybe we should at least gain an indictment."
I guess the question for conservatives probably is this: what is the line too far when it comes to Donald Trump at this point in time? I mean, because I think part of what the purpose of the hearing is to do as well is to kind of have a mirror reflect back on more conservatives and say, listen, this is what you got behind. You know, is this going to be something where the line is finally drawn to be too far for conservatives, even for 2024, where they go, Jeff, for example, I'd rather go with DeSantis than Trump because Trump is just going to be too much trouble. And I say that with the caveat of anybody that paid attention in 2015 and 2016, where Donald Trump was, quote unquote, willing to pay for people's legal fees if they knocked people out at his rallies. If they're shocked what happened in 2021, is what's going on in 2022 with these hearings going to really get them off of the Trump train?
No, I don't think so. But I do think that's a fair question, though, especially the way you put it. I don't think that it's going to push them off the edge, especially right now when we're seeing what's happening in this country. It goes kind of back to what we've talked about before, Lenny. I mean, people are concerned about how much it's costing to fill up their tank. I know I am, and they're concerned about the price of groceries. They're concerned about all of these things that are happening right now that didn't happen under Trump. So I think that's what people are looking at. And the thing is, there are already people on the right who would prefer to see Trump sit this one out and let DeSantis run. There are a lot of them. I'm one of them. I would like to see that. But if Trump does run, they're not going to vote for Democrats over it. Like, even if they have some problems with Trump, or maybe if they think that maybe his time has passed, they're still going to support him because they know what the alternative is, and we're experiencing that right now. So the Democrats are in a tough position. They have to play a very strong persuasion game that goes to what they want us to do, but they're up against what we're dealing with right now when they're in power.
I guess the question, just to follow up with you first, and I'll get to Priscilla on this, which is, you know, what's frustrating is, and I've seen the memes online, you know, this was what it was under Trump. This is what it is under Biden. Mm-hmm. There wasn't a war. There wasn't a pandemic. There wasn't an aftermath of pandemic. There wasn't us flooding the economy with all kinds of money. People forget it's not just the payments that people got in their bank accounts individually because of the pandemic. How much money did we throw at the airlines? Did we throw at businesses? Did we throw at the education system? Of course there was going to be inflation. What do you think we're going to? The whole world did this. So, of course, the value of currency was going to go down. It's as if we want to not, and I made this analogy in an interview before, people don't even want to compare apples to oranges. They want to compare apples to automobiles and compare the last two administrations and say it wasn't like this under Trump. Of course it wasn't. But by the way, yes, there wasn't a Ukraine war, but there was an annexation under Obama, and we almost went to blows with fire and fury that the world has never seen with North Korea under Trump. So it's like everybody, you don't even have to go get a history book. Just go get some old newspapers that are lining your bird cages. You'll see some of the headlines. It wasn't as rosy as you thought it was back then.
But I think that it was, though. I mean, even though people, even though the COVID hit in his last year of his presidency, people were not experiencing what they're experiencing now. And yeah, I mean, it is fair to,
yeah, 22 million people lost their jobs in 1 month while the president of the United States was saying,
right,
this is all just going to disappear. This is just a cold. It's going to disappear.
Yes.
So that happened under Trump. And those were Trump's words with COVID. And look,
and it continued under Biden and got worse under Biden, even with the vaccine.
And to be fair, Nancy Pelosi told people to go to Chinese New Year. Bill de Blasio told people to enjoy Valentine's Day. So it wasn't just a partisan thing. I give you that. But again, we're looking at one thing, which is gas prices in 2019 during a really good economy, post-pandemic, post everything else.
Yeah, I think right now, though, I mean, because if you look at Trump's first term before COVID, things were going fine, and COVID was out of its control. And I will even say that with this administration too. But I right now, I do people perceive that they are suffering more under this administration. It is what it is. And, we don't look into all the details. I mean, because, I interviewed Carol Roth, who talks about the impact on small business, and she will acknowledge that the inflation issues did start under the Trump administration, but they well, to use a word, they inflated even more under Biden. So it's been both administrations are responsible, but right now, who's in charge? Who's making it even worse? It's the guy that's in the White House. So I do hear your point, but at the same time, what we're dealing with right now is still, at least perception-wise, not as bad as under Biden. I wasn't paying this much for gas under Trump. I mean, I wasn't paying this much for gas under Trump. I wasn't paying this much for groceries under Trump. It's happening under Biden. And not only that, it doesn't seem like he has any real solutions to the problem. We have an energy issue, but Biden doesn't want to drill. So people are seeing that stuff.
So, and Priscilla, let me go to you on this, and then to Dr. Metzler, because there's a fair point there. There is the what actually happened, right? So we could talk about that, but then on top of that, there is the perception of leadership. I mean, you go back to the late 1970s, Carter was right. There was a crisis of confidence going on, but you don't want your president saying that. That's not going to make anything better. Joe Biden is not projecting a whole lot of presidential confidence, which, by the way, when a president speaks, it impacts the markets. And it's as if he's completely either never known about that or completely forgotten about that. And that's having an impact on how people feel about how we're getting through the pandemic, the economy as a result of the pandemic, and some of these turbulent social times.
100%. When you have investors who don't feel confident investing in oil and gas, that's a problem. When you have the president of the United States always saying, oh, I'm going to get in trouble if I say this, it makes him look weak, because he is weak, because everybody knows he's not running the show. There are a lot of people making decisions on his behalf, telling him what to say. And that creates a lot of nervousness and a lot of distrust. I don't see how he recovers from that. In my lifetime, he's the weakest president I've ever seen. And right now, people...
You're only 25 years old, so I digress.
Right. Thank you. Black don't cry. And Asian don't raisin. So anyway.
That was the first time I've ever heard that one.
I don't know. Something happens once you hit 60, and then it does go downhill. But
yes,
I'm a long way from there. Anyway,
you're 25.
Yes, correct. But right now, the American people want, need, deserve a strong leader who is going to bring us solutions. This kabuki theater we have been seeing for the last couple of years, that needs to end, because there are real issues. When we have moms who can't find food on the shelves, when people are trying to decide how much gas they're going to put in their car, they're going to make it to the end of the week. If they're going to go to work, can they work from home? A lot of people can't work from home. They're working minimum wage jobs, but it's going to cost them more to put gas in their tank and go to work, than the income that they're bringing in. There's too many real choices that impact real people. I don't know if people in the White House even understand or feel the impact. I have no confidence when you listen to these people say, well, I have a driver taking me everywhere. Do they even know what it's like to fill up the gas tank? They're so out of touch. So I think there's going to be a huge change and a huge shift. The bench in the Republican Party is really deep. We have a lot of great leaders to choose from. Anybody's going to be better than Joe Biden in 2024. He needs to stop talking about running in 2024. There is no way Americans are going to vote for him for a second term.
All right, but let's get back to January 6th in this hearing, Dr. Metzler. What's the end result of what we're going to see, not just from this past Thursday, but over the next couple of hearings that are lined up in the coming days? What's the end result that comes out of this? Because, one can make the case that, okay, you've only deepened the trench between Americans. You've only divided people more. You may not get something out of it. It may tip the scales. What say you? What's going to be the yield from these seeds that the committee's planting?
Well, politically, this is not gonna really make a difference for Democrats, and that's why I don't think that they're focusing at all on the American people. I think the end result is they're going to draw up, at least theoretically, a bill of particulars, or what they think will be an indictment. Let that be seen by Fannie Willis in Atlanta, and also by the Justice Department. And it is very clear to me that they're not going to make any conclusion that Trump should be indicted. They're going to kick that ball into the court of Fannie Willis and the Justice Department. That's the end game for them here. There is no other game. They understand people don't care about this. And so that's the end game, a bill of particulars.
So let me kick it to this then. From a national sovereignty and security perspective, if Americans don't really care that much about what happened on January 6th, I'm just going to throw it out there, not to scare people, but especially in light of the mass shootings that we continuously have, unfortunately. But how vulnerable are we as the United States to a domestic attack occurring on our soil? Because I tell you what, if I were Iran, no one's talked about Iran for a while. No one's talked about Hezbollah for a while. No one's talked about ISIS for a while. No one's talked about Al-Qaeda for a while. But if I were any of those four actors, the North Koreans, the Chinese, even if it's not a bloody attack, this is one whale of a time to attack the grid. This is a great time to take down the water supply in one of the top 20 cities in the United States for 48 hours, because we are so distracted and so divided, and we will blame each other for it. You know, and maybe this is a crazy theory. I'll throw it out there, and whoever wants to jump in first can. But I tell you what, this level of divisiveness, if it's not done organically, just because of American politics and not the way it's always been, this might be one of the greatest attacks on the United States of America that we've ever seen, because nothing has had this country more divided since the civil rights movement 60 years ago and the freaking Civil War 160 years ago than what we're going through right now. And if there's a time that this country, with the greatest economy and the greatest military, is going to be as vulnerable as it is right now, it's going through these times.
Lenny, you're making a great point. When we have leaders like Nancy Pelosi, who had the opportunity to call in the troops and she decided not to, she made all of those congressmen vulnerable to a lack of safety. But again, this is the party that preach defund the police. They are trying every which way to reduce gun ownership instead of supporting legalized gun owners and people who are being responsible. They're creating laws and trying to push policies that punish legal and responsible gun owners. You're not going to end all of these atrocities by not addressing it, comprehensively. So I think you make a good point. I don't trust the government to protect us. And so I would point fingers at Nancy Pelosi. I would start there.
But I want to pull it back up even higher. I don't want to dive into the American politics, because I'm going to rephrase the question, which is this: with the state of the American body politic, are we vulnerable to an attack from the outside of these borders inside, even if it is having us fighting against each other so much that they can attack our power grid, they can attack, our water system, they can do something, they can attack. All you have to do is put a virus into the airline system, and you can disrupt the American economy again. Are we at a point in time where we are so looking at these type of things that perhaps we're going to miss something that's going to cost us lives or billions of dollars in a different way, which further weakens the country? That's what I'm pulling out.
We've been vulnerable. I mean, when our gasoline software was attacked several months ago, that we've been vulnerable. And so we have a president who ran on uniting the country, and he's failed. So I don't see how we are not vulnerable to any kind of outside attacks.
Gents?
Yeah, I would say, I mean, because that is something that I'm concerned about. And we've talked about that on this show plenty of times, Lenny. I mean, is our division making us possibly more vulnerable to a foreign attack? Honestly, I think part of our divisiveness is partly because of foreign influences. I mean, we saw what Russia was trying to do in the 2016 election. People think that they were doing that to get Trump elected. No, their first priority was to help get us into the situation that we're in right now, where we're all just so divided. Russia's still doing it. Iran's doing it. China's doing it.
I would even. I'm going to throw a tidbit out there. What I'm going to say is, if I'm the Russians, there's a likelihood, and I'm not trying to be a Alex Jones conspiracist. Sorry, folks, that you did not tune into InfoWars. This is Red and Black.
You better put on that tinfoil hat.
Like, share, subscribe. I just want to make sure that you didn't get us confused. But if I'm the Russians, I helped elect the last two presidents, right? Because if you get to choose between John McCain and Barack Obama, who would you rather have president if you're Russia and you're Putin? It's Barack Obama. If you had to choose between Barack Obama and Mitt Romney, who said in 2012 that the greatest geopolitical threat to stability around the world was Russia, who would you rather have as president? Re-elect the black guy? Or go after the Mormon that people are a little scary, a little scared of, and said that Russia's a threat? Go to 2016. Would you rather have the wife of a former U.S. president who served as Secretary of State and as U.S. Senator, or would you rather have Donald Trump, who has had financial ties to the Russians? I wouldn't just make this a 2016 argument. You could make the case all the way back to 2008 that the Russians have had major interest in who wins the presidency. And let's just be honest, in geopolitical matters, this has happened forever. This is not a new phenomenon. They may have just succeeded at it in a way they didn't before.
Yeah, they did. And that's why I still contend that their first priority is to get us more divided the way we are right now, because these countries know that they couldn't invade the United States and win, because they could, and they could cause damage, but we're going to kick them out. We're going to get them before they even really get here. But the best way to attack us is to make us more divided, make us more partisan or what have you. And that is dangerous. And I do think that in some instances it might make us vulnerable, but I do think that in a lot of cases our authorities are doing a decent job at least so far of dealing with potential foreign threats. I mean, we just disrupted a plot to assassinate George W. Bush. And where were they going to smuggle those operatives through? The southern border. So yeah, Biden's not doing a good job on the southern border. So I'm glad that at least the FBI was on top of this. But at the same time, this could be an issue. I mean, maybe we're not so divided that our government isn't still watching out for foreign threats. But could it get to that point? Could it get to a point to where they, for political expediency, maybe allow something to happen? I don't know. Maybe I've got the tinfoil hat on right now.
Dr. Metzler, let me go to you on this, and I'm going to take people back to the fact that, in the late 1990s, Bill Clinton was fighting his own impeachment at a time he could have been going after Osama bin Laden. We were fighting over the 2000 election, going into 2001. People were still a little salty about that, and then 9/11 happened. There are times where we are vulnerable as a country because we are taking our eye off the ball. And again, I remind people of this, and they don't like talking about this, but the Democrats were focused on impeaching Trump in 2019. They weren't as focused on what the heck was going on in China in this place called Wuhan that nobody had heard of at the time. In fact, all we heard about were memes about people eating bats on Facebook. Then the next thing you know, everybody and their grandmother is on some type of, lockdown in their own homes. So I'm going to remind folks that it wasn't that long ago that both political parties were more focused on politics than keeping the country safe. We've lost over 750,000 Americans to COVID in the shadows of that. Are we running the risk of doing the same exact thing, even with what we saw on Thursday night, even with what we know about January 6th, and even what we know about American politics on both sides going on today, Dr. Metzler?
Yeah, well, absolutely we are. And in fact, there have already been, soft attempts relative to cyber war, cyber attack. Those are dress rehearsals for what can be coming forward. Look, the country is so divided at this point in time that it makes it just that much more vulnerable to attack. And while it may not be a spectacular attack, this issue of division will bring it to the fore. And so I'm not suggesting that the government has taken its eye off the ball. I am suggesting that there is a need for all sides to really look at this issue of division and growing division and what everyone is contributing to that. Because as it relates to division, it is not just one party or the other, it is both parties. And it is also the American public who will just have gotten so caught up in this cult of personality and this idol worship of people that they're not seeing the forest for the trees. That concerns me deeply. Folks are so concerned about their candidate or their this and their that, rather than be concerned about America. We are the ones who elect those people, and to the extent that they are fomenting division, we have a responsibility as well.
Well, and here's the interesting
Can I tag on to that? Because he made a really great point, as a teacher, where I'm seeing how we're not really teaching young people how to love our country. We're taking the pledge away, the family. We don't have any kind of allegiance per se to our country when we have even Olympians going and, kneeling and not saying the pledge. It's embarrassing because we have other countries who love their country, yet we're teaching our young people to hate our country. And so that's part of the division, where instead of coming together and uniting, the last time we were all really united was 9/11. I mean, the way our country came together and after 9/11 was amazing. We need to come together as a country and prioritize these solutions. And like Dr. Metzer said, stop elevating and idolizing individuals who are fallible, who are constantly taking us down a rabbit hole of their own, self-destruction. It's not helping us. I hope this is an awakening. Like, share, subscribe, because we need to awaken our people to come together and create solutions.
But do you understand, Jeff, the delicious irony of 4 conservatives talking about we should not be part of a movement that is more focused on personality than on America. And then at the same exact time, we know there's a whole bunch of conservatives that are like, January 6th, it's just a day before January 7th. I don't even know why you keep bringing this up. I mean, we have watched the Democratic Party literally canonize Bill Clinton with all the baggage he had come to the White House with, let alone since the White House. Okay. They literally put him on stage for conventions because Uncle Bill had something to say despite all. They put him on stage during Me Too, which tells you how tone deaf they were. On the flip side, we got Donald Trump saying, hold my beer when it comes to those type of things. It's very hard to look at young people, Jeff, and say we need to teach them how to love America more. And we do. I agree with you, Priscilla. But at the same exact time, it drives you all to drink. I understand, Dr. Metz. But when we're not electing, to Dr. Metzler's and Priscilla's point, when we're not electing, that's not the same type of drink, Priscilla. If it's that serious, it should be something a little redder and a little stronger. Well, yeah, we don't know what's in there.
What's in there?
Yeah, Irish cream.
There you go. When you look at the politicians we're electing and we defend them regardless of what's going on, the bar for behavior is dropping. The bar for excellence is dropping. The bar for statesmanship is dropping.
Yeah.
It's very hard.
It's dropped.
Well, and there's this loud boom. And every time we think we found the floor, Jeff, there's another level that it keeps falling below. And it does beg the question, kind of like what they used to say with the limbo, how low can you go?
Oh, man, you just dated yourself. And you dated me because I just acknowledged that I knew what that was. But you're right though, Lenny. I mean, that's why the second part of my motto is I prefer principles over politics and over personalities.
Yes.
And we have gotten
That
into
was,
this
wait a minute.
mode.
Wait. Look, that, first of all, you see how he's robbing my stuff, Dr. Metzler? That was part of my theme song on a radio show 10 years ago. Principles.
I
of
wasn't
politics.
listening to
Another
you 10
principle.
years ago.
Yeah, I know. That's what that dates me to tell you that I was old enough to be in this. But I digress. I'm not trying to steal your thunder, even though you.
Well, I'll go back to something else that I say that won't steal your thunder. I always tell people, like, politicians are like hoes. You ain't supposed to be loving them. You ain't supposed to be loving these hoes. You can like a politician, but don't love them, because you're right. I mean, we have gotten so caught up in this cult of personality. And it didn't start with Trump. I mean, you remember how people reacted to Obama? Obama's charisma was on point. People loved Obama.
Obama girl. He was not catching momentum until Obama girl. Forget about that.
Yeah.
You know, Obama was so, people loved Obama so much. I had a friend, and he asked his aunt, you know, if Obama came out as a devil worshiper, would you still vote for him? And she said yes. So, yeah, we've had this cult of personality, but it's even before that. Look at JFK. Mm-hmm. Now, it wasn't as bad back then as it is as I see it right now. We do get into this mode where we think this person is a savior. We may not say it in those words, but we do see the president of the United States as our potential savior. And it's not a good thing. And so basically all you need to do to get enough clout to get elected into Congress, the way it's becoming, is that you have to be able to say all the right things, to hit all the right chords, to hit all the right notes, and you're in. You don't have to have substance. You don't have to have much of a knowledge of the issues. And I think I can see this getting worse.
Priscilla, you have to do one other thing, and this is where it's dangerous, because you have to do all those things that Jeff said, but you also have to hate the right people. You have to have somebody you really, really, really detest. And you have to be able to exemplify with your words and even actions how much you dislike the other side, which, by the way, are also fellow Americans that people often miss. If you check that box as well, then you're good, because everything else you can do. But you got to also show that you really detest the other side. It's not good enough to say, I don't like Democrats. You got to say, lock her up, for example.
Yeah, I mean, people are picking sides, and people are becoming more and more emotional, less rational and more emotional and sensationalized. And everything is social media and clicks and sound bites. People don't have a lot of time to do a lot of deep research. And that's what's so powerful about social media, Twitter, just a sentence or two. And if you're a really smart strategist and you can advise your candidate on what is a hot topic, and you can afford to do research and find out what's important to people, you can create a whole campaign off of these sound bites of like who you hate and why you hate them and why they're terrible, and create fear and distrust. Once you do that, you've got people locked in, because who has time to research what the truth is and to go deep? And so, you know, it's a great lesson about politics. You just rinse and repeat, rinse and repeat. You can go back in time and look at these campaigns and see exactly how people have won. And right now, during primaries, the opposite political party is investing money into someone else's race so they can decide who they want to run against, who they prefer to run against in a general. And so there are a lot of strategies, a lot of shenanigans happening right now. People need to pay attention, but everything's going to happen in the middle. You've got your extremes on both sides, and just pay attention to what people are saying, because it's going to be a dogfight. But I still see, you know, the conservative solution makers coming out on top in the end.
Dr. Metzler, is the reset button going to be that fear that we were mentioning earlier in the show, which is something drastically happens really, really bad in the country? Because, I mean, let's just be honest, really bad is no longer kids getting shot at school. Right. We've already gotten past Uvalde, which is crazy. Mm-hmm. We've already gotten past Sandy Hook, which is crazy. So if we're not going to reset with a politician that's going to genuinely bring people together, is the reset for this country going to be, 3,000 dead because somebody dropped a dirty bomb in some small town in Kansas? Or are we just not going to have a reset, and we're just going to be this dysfunctional country, because after all, the Brits, they were the most powerful country in the world going into the 20th century. And between 2 world wars and getting and losing their way, they stopped being that country in the 1950s. And they haven't been there since. Is that where we're going as a country? Or is it maybe we have to have that drastic reset to get everybody to start acting like they got some sense again?
No, I think we're going, in fact, we're going the way of the Brits. We're going the way of the dysfunction. As you just, noticed, Boris Johnson barely survived a confidence vote. You've got Prince Charles now, who doesn't understand his role. His role is not to talk about Boris Johnson. There is a clear separation there. He has no role in politics at all. And so that's slowly getting worse. And Boris Johnson is not long for office. And so I think we're going to continue to go that way. The problem, of course, for us is then, in particular, the Nordic countries are really upgrading and elevating themselves, and they will become a significant force to be reckoned with. In addition to which, this so-called summit of the American, Biden, what are you doing? What is the purpose of all of that? We're trying to play in the international space that is already thumbing its nose at us. And we just seem to be like, yeah, okay, whatever. And that presents a significant problem.
Jeff,
we're like that kid in class that nobody likes, but that person doesn't know that nobody likes them.
Right.
That's right. Or worse still, I mean, this kind of goes back to President Obama. It's if there's a focus on being a good global citizen more than there is in being the global leader, it shifts your perspective on how you're supposed to get along with folks, how you feel roles, how other people feel roles, et cetera. I think, I've been thinking about this, Jeff. People forget how much influence the United States of America has by being the global power economically and militarily. If you have free markets, you give other people a chance to be talented and to win economically. Militarily, if you're keeping the peace, you provide an opportunity for other individuals to be able to be participants in the free market. You don't want China writing the rules. We are watching now. We certainly don't want Russia writing the rules. We've already gone through it. We don't want Iran or some of the other more radical countries in the world writing more of the rules or writing the majority of the rules. So it seems as though, and this is where I think conservatives, we can win the day, at least from an international perspective. There's a role for the United States to play in having strength without being a bully. And it seems as though the left is more inclined to prove to everybody that we're not bullies, but are relinquishing the leadership mantle in the process.
What you just said, it reminds me of when Obama was in office, and I wasn't in this space yet. It would be a long time before I was, actually, and I would post on Facebook, and I just posted, and I was wondering, with Obama, why did he seem like he was so intent on weakening the United States of America? Back then, I didn't really understand the globalist mindset, and I know we throw that word around a lot, but the globalism is a thing. When somebody is focused on being a globalist and wanting to be a citizen of the world, you have to weaken the United States, because a globalist world cannot have a superpower like ours leading the way, whether it involves the military or not. I'm not even talking about getting involved militarily. I'm talking about just showing that leadership that you're talking about, Lenny. And I think we're seeing the same thing with Biden. I mean, we could be getting our own energy right now. We could be going more towards energy independence, but he doesn't want to. These people want to be more reliant on the rest of the world rather than being that shining city on a hill that our founders envisioned and leading the way. Again, like you said, it doesn't mean that we have to be bullies. We can be powerful. We don't have to get involved in every military entanglement, but there are other ways for America to take the lead. And I do think that that's a lot of what President Trump was trying to do. But even though you're the president, you can't do that alone. It requires our government apparatus to be behind you. And I am concerned about that, because the more globalist in our thinking we get, the weaker our country gets. And these people who want to rule, who want to tell us what we can and can't do, they don't have our best interests at heart. All they want is power. So things will get worse if these people win the day. So yeah, a strong America is a benefit for the entire world. But I don't think that there are a lot of people who don't see it that way.
All right, before I let us go for this week, Dr. Metzler, as Jeff Charles runs for the presidency in the next 2 years, how do you advise his campaign to be that bridge builder based on what he just said, but also what the country needs in regards to more of an adult in the room to kind of be in between the deepening divides that we're seeing?
Well, I think it goes back to really talking about the core and fundamental principles of America. I think it goes back also to stop trying to castigate people because they don't agree with you 100% of the time. Agreeing with you 100% of the time is the very group thing that we as conservatives say that we don't like. I think it's important to be able to do that. And on the global stage, I think it's important for us to decide that, in fact, we're not going to be the global citizen piece necessarily weakens us. If I'm a global citizen, it means I have to be at parity. Well, if I'm at parity, that doesn't really work for what I'm trying to do. And I also think it's important to start educating voters more and more and more about what America is about. I mean, as I look at some of the social media posts, I'm like, are you kidding me? You really believe that? Did you read that somewhere? So I think it's important to have more adult conversation. Right now, we're talking like 4-year-olds. And we're really talking at each other instead of with each other. Until we do that, we're going to continue to slide deeper and deeper into the abyss. The gates of hell and the gates of destruction, I think, for America with this continued behavior is wide open.
Priscilla, can you chime in on that, considering the fact that Dr. Metzler, as you well know, just came back from church of the whole gates of hell, and he got all Catholic-y on us, and before you know it, he put some holy water on us. But go ahead.
Yeah, I mean, consensus building is definitely an art, and definitely to go back to Jeff's comment about Obama, he really did usher in that era of more Marxism and CRT and that ideology and philosophy that just attacked the American way of life. And we've got the receipts to show it. I mean, he was talking about this stuff in college and bringing in speakers to campuses to try to dismantle what we know as America. So like, it's no wonder we are where we are. And there's a lot of things that happened, but we need to get back to really sitting down and listening and respecting different points of views and saying, hey, we're here to come up with a solution rather than just fighting all the time.
And that is why Dr. Oz is running for U.S. Senate in the Commonwealth of Pennsylvania. I'm sorry. I just had to.
It's time for a drink of water.
There you go. And as we do that, Jeff Charles, what you got going on this week?
Got more of the same. I've got all these interviews that I'm uploading to my YouTube channel, A Fresh Perspective. I've got my audio-only podcast at A Fresh Perspective, wherever you get your podcasts. I'm going to be going to the Faith and Freedom Conference this coming weekend, so I'll be doing some reporting on that, so stay tuned.
Fantastic. Have you had Dr. Metzler? You've had Dr. Metzler on previously, right?
No.
Okay.
Wow. When are you going to have Dr. Metzler on your show?
The thing with you, Dr. Metzler, is that you do everything. So I still have to figure out what to actually talk to you about. Yeah.
Fair enough. That's a weak excuse. You ask.
Like when I had you on, Lenny, I knew I could talk about education. When I had Priscilla on, we talked about education, teaching. But Dr. Metzler is everything. Like what do you talk to a guy like Dr. Metzler about? I mean, unless we got like 3 hours to do an episode.
Dr. Metzler, why don't you give him an excuse to have you on the show? What are you working on this week?
Well, this week I'm actually just catching up from my extended vacation, and just trying to respond to emails. I have no idea what's going on. So there.
You see?
Dr. Metzler had a very interesting Friday night that he will not disclose here.
I will not.
We'll talk about it on another time. But let's just say it involved high-ranking Americans and hot holy messes within, the realms of government. Priscilla, what you got going on this week?
Let's go, Brandon.
I'm going to be sampling all of my wines that I got from Napa Valley. And I am going to be working with candidates because we've got a primary June 28th is our last day in Colorado. We got a canvas, knock doors, make phone calls. We're just trying to get people out to vote, turn out the vote.
Fantastic, folks. Listen, folks, once again, like, subscribe, share this episode. Make sure that you're paying attention to the issues at hand. Make sure you're tuning in to Red and Black every single week. And of course, like we said, a fresh perspective. Check out Jeff on Red State as well. The Red State YouTube channels where you can find us, and continue to just follow us on social media and tell your folks about us, because we're looking to bring more and more people into the show and bring more and more people into the fold of solutions that get us past some of the things we talk about on the show. And meanwhile, enjoy the rest of your Monday, enjoy the rest of your week, and we'll catch up to you soon. TCNGB, take care and God bless.
Take care.
Peace.